before that we start with the press conference, I'd like to, without wasting any further time, introduce you to the leadership of POPCRU. And then from then on, they will obviously be reading out the press statement. And then we will then give you some time to actually ask questions or make comments that they will then respond to. Without any particular sequence, I'll start introducing you to the leadership from this side, from your, I don't know, from your left, Malungere. Yeah, it's their what, okay? However you look at it, but from this side. The first comrade here is Comrade Skade. Zanikaya Skade is the first Deputy General Secretary. Next to him is the National Treasurer of POPCRU, Comrade Tulani Ntsele. Next to him is the one with the black cap, is the General Secretary of POPCRU, Comrade Jeff Zaza. Sorry, I wanted to say it. Next to him is the first Deputy President, Comrade Maruru Kakamba Samula. And then next to him is the second Deputy General Secretary, Musadi Wabaje Mukuku. So these are the NOBs of POPCRU. Without wasting any further time, they will take us through the statement and we'll take it from there. Thank you, Lubana.
No, good morning, colleagues. I think we want to start by saying our statement is clear, but I think it's divided into three pillars on the issues that we think are more important. The Police and Prison Civil Rights Union, POPCRU, convened a special National Executive Committee on Wednesday, the 10th of August 2022. The meeting took note of the current developments within the sectors we organize in, the perceived narrative that members therein, especially in the South African Police Service, are not serious about service delivery, and such other allegations which have further isolated the much-needed good working relations between police and communities. This meeting took place just after our provincial structures convened their ordinary provincial executive committee meetings, wherein a number of decisions were taken. The special NEC reflected on the issues below. On the Women's Month, Special NEC noted with disappointment that this year, Women's Month was met with a gruesome, horrific event wherein a group of young women had been brutalized and raped at the Krugersdorp area, and many other such cases that happen behind closed doors and never get to be in the public domain. Not only in the gender-based violence, a continuous cancer which is taking the lives of people and the women and children in particular. But it is a pandemic we need to tackle collectively. On our part as a union, we continue to support our gender structures, educating our membership, and conducting workshops with the Safer South Africa Foundation and various stakeholders in raising awareness about this scourge. While we recognize that our society is battling with many socio-economic challenges, our women and children remain the worst affected by GBV and criminality, and often at the hands of those who are expected to take care for and protect them. As we commemorate women during this month, we should all do some introspection and reconsider how we treat our women as a country. The Special NEC further took note of the President of the country remarks at the National Women's Day event held in Richmond, KwaZulu-Natal on Tuesday, when he said that the new laws, namely Criminal and Related Matters Amendment Act, the Criminal Law Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act, and the Domestic Violence Amendment Act, will empower the police to enter premises without a warrant and, if necessary, arrest the suspect, and that under the new laws, police can also remove dangerous weapons from a suspect, and complainants will be able to apply for protection orders online. Through these are good initiatives. However, their impact is unlikely to achieve the envisioned outcomes as the very tool to be utilized in realizing these goals. The police are working under strenuous conditions as it is, with the neoliberal austerity measures having reduced the staff complement and worse, the SAPS budget have been cut by billions of rands. The State of the Union, the NEC further reflected on the challenges facing the labour movement in general and resolved on intensifying its work of building strong class consciousness union that is united, reaffirming the need to strengthen our resolve to stick to our long-held traditions of worker control, class consciousness, and placing the service to members at the center of our overall program. NEC further reflected on the challenges the different departments are facing and has noted the provincial traffic has not been appointing new staff complement due to their fragmentation, and that there is no promotion policy which actually hindered them to have an upward mobility. The Special NEC reiterated its call for the nationalization of traffic so that we are able to streamline the functions of all traffic fraternities to fall under the Department of Transport. The Department of Correctional Services currently has a post-establishment of 39,139, and before that it had been 48,000 trained correctional officials. The officials currently dealing directly with inmates as of 30 June 2022 are 26,287. And this is a cause for concern as it means more altercation and deviation from the core function of rehabilitation, which in the main that is why we have seen actually a lot of evidence of attack of our members in the country. In fact, our members are butchered by offenders each and every day in Department of Correctional Services. Escalation of crime situation in South Africa and a call for crime summit. The crime situation in our country has over the past year increased at an alarming rate and seems to worsen unabated. And the released crime statistics are a reminder of the devastating impact budget cuts are having on service delivery within the entire criminal justice cluster, even further adversely affecting the police-community ratio. Our law enforcement agencies are not just struggling with staff shortages, but they are also poorly equipped, and the responses to the past riots and other protests, such as those taking place in different areas of our township, also serve not as a problem of police, as many observers would like to have it, but as a consequent social dislocation and socio-economic hardships our people find themselves. It is becoming clear by the day that under capitalist system there can be no social progress. The very austerity measures by Treasury since 2014 have slowed down the rate of recruitment within the law enforcement agencies, which has been part of the source of this deterioration in safety standards. In the SAPS, this has been seen the staff complement declining from 192,000 to 155,000 over a period of 5 years, as per the imposed budgetary cuts by National Treasury, of which the number of police officers on the street is below 100,000, because the majority are senior officers are pushing papers in their offices. Hence that, as POPCRU, we've been calling for years now, the issue of implementing the restructuring that will take most of the people from the offices to the street. As we welcome 10,000 new recruits who are currently undergoing training at different centers across the country, we are equally concerned that after their training, they will be sent to stations which are under-resourced with inadequate equipment to conduct their work as expected, as there is still not enough being done to ensure law enforcement officers have adequate resources to confront the rising crime rates in our country. And the Special NEC resolved on a call for an urgent crime summit, which should, among other things, look into escalating levels of violent crime, abuse on women and children, drug trafficking, the rehabilitation of unused mines as part of the challenges facing policing in the country. To achieve this, POPCRU is calling upon all communities, police, criminal justice, policing agencies, peace and stability groups, academia, as stakeholders that should play a pivotal role in averting a potential disastrous situation wherein criminality grows unabated. We are not calling for just a talk show. We are calling for a crime summit or crime indaba that will have a clear objectives that we are going to be able to evaluate quarterly to check that all the resolutions that are taken in that crime summit are implemented. Combating crime should not only solely be seen as a police issue, but needs all stakeholders, especially the communities, to come on board and play a role through having good working relations with police. As much as the crime rates such as murder are on an increase, so are the rates of law enforcement officers being killed in correctional centers while coordinating traffic, while conducting their work. The Special National Executive Committee reflected at length on the fragmentation of the criminal justice cluster, currently finds itself with different departments operating differently while relying on each other inputs in conducting their mandate function. It is therefore proposed that there is a need to establish synergy between the Department of Correctional Services, SAPS, and Judiciary, with the SAPS accounting for the arrest made, the Judiciary accounting for the number of conviction and prosecution, while the Department of Correctional Services accounts for the number of incarcerations and also rehabilitation. POPCRU calls for the judiciary that should operate even during holidays to address huge backlog of cases. NEC further believe this will assist in determining consolidated future budget that should bring about a correlated approach within the CJC instead of the current continued situation wherein every department works blindly and in isolation to one another. On the matters of the PSCPC, Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council, on the reneging of the government on Resolution 1 of 2018, the NEC reflected at length the government defaulting on the full implementation of the binding agreement and on the use of courts to impose their point that disadvantaged public servants. Special NEC concluded that despite the court ruling on the matter, our members continue to be frustrated and demoralized by the refusal by government to implement the last leg of the Resolution 1 of 2018, especially clause 3.3, which speaks to salary increases. This has reduced these workers to financial hardships, while basic commodities continue to rise on a daily basis. While this has been the treatment towards public servants who compromise their lives as frontliners during the period of the pandemic, the President endorsed the recommendation submitted by the Independent Commission on the remuneration of public office bearers that all political office bearers should get 3% salary increase. Therefore, Special NEC, in fact, deliberated at length around this matter that our members are angry, have been angered, in fact, by this increment of 3% to those public officers who don't even negotiate. Yet, currently in the negotiation, the government is not willing actually to budge on the inflationary increment. That actually have angered our members. POPCRU then calls for to march to the union building. The Special NEC vehemently rejected the current government offer of 2% salary increase, including a grant of 1,000 rand. We have always recognized that talks within the boardrooms don't always yield expected outcomes, and since the platforms which are aimed at facilitating such talks are being undermined. The NEC resolved that in defending our hard-won gains, our members within the criminal justice cluster will embark on a march directly to the commander-in-chief, which is the president of this country, and will demand, we place our demand there, that public servants be paid what is owed to them. A better salary offer for a baseline that is not less than 10%. To attend to all agreements that are not implemented, such as housing scheme for public servants, Treasury must reverse all neoliberal austerity measures in the public service, all vacant positions to be filled, and employment of qualified graduates to beef up the post-establishment of the public service. And we further demand that no state-owned enterprises must be privatized. This action will be pursued on many fronts, including the lunchtime pickets across all police stations, correctional centers, traffic institutions, and everywhere we organize. we're saying that we are going to embark in this action where our provinces will have pickets around the country in institutions where we're organizing, and further at the National Treasury offices and the provincial departments offices. That will culminate actually to the march that will take place on the 20th of September, because it is very clear that our government is not serious, is not actually taking public service workers serious on these matters, especially the police, who are beaten actually by inflation that is going up each and every day, where the food prices is going up, electricity is going, transport is going up, everything in fact is going up in this country, yet they are getting actually the increment that is far lesser than the inflation. If all fails, we'll be left with no option but to withdraw our labor force. The march is scheduled to take place on the 20th of September 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleagues. That was a statement from the Special National Executive Committee of POPCRU. So we'll be taking a round of questions, if any. I'll give it to you, colleagues. Are there any questions? Okay. Yeah, Malungelo, you can start.
Good morning. My name is Malungelo from Newsroom Africa. I'm just interested on the latter part of your statement, Mr. Leader. So you're saying that there will be these lunchtime pickets. When do they start? When do workers affiliated to begin with this action? And you're saying, I don't know if I got you correctly, you want 10% increment? I just want to make sure that I got it right. What has government said to you? Have they said that they don't have this money? Thank you.
Okay, Donald?
Thank you so much. My name is Colvin Williams from ENCH. Just to be clear, will it be POPCRU members or actual police marching to the Union Booth? And then secondly, what is POPCRU saying about corruption in the police that's led to ineffective policing and the spike in crime rates? Which degree do you blame corruption in the police or ineffective policing for the increase in the crime rate? Yesterday we saw a march to the Krugersdorp police station where community members called to do that, accused the district commissioner in that area of failing to respond to illegal mining and gender-based violence despite knowing the extent of the investment in that area over a number of years. Of course, those concerns are legitimate and they are true based on what we've seen this week. What could you say to someone who says the police are the reason why crime is increasing because the police themselves are failing to police this country?
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. LOBs, please do respond to those questions.
No, thank you very much. I think on the issue that has been raised, the first question on the pickets when to start on Thursday this week, there will be another NEC that will outline the whole program when it's going to start. But immediately after that NEC on Friday, then the program is going to start. But secondly, the 10%, in fact, that we're demanding, the employer is saying it's unaffordable. At the same time, they are saying it's very expensive, actually, to implement this 10%. But what we're saying, because you could see that in our negotiation, the employer has introduced something that is called gratuity, which in our view, we're totally against actually the issue of gratuity, because it is casualizing public service, because that money, there is no increment in terms of the pension where an employer contributes to the pension of the workers. As we speak currently, if you look for the past 2 years, when this thing was implemented, in the main, if you look that they did not get increment and then they started to implement gratuity. If you crunch our numbers, workers have lost more than 10% in their pension. What does that tell you? That means if you've got 1 million rand in your kitty, in your pension, you have lost almost 100,000 rand. So that's a serious money for the workers. So we're against that. We're saying, employer, if it's serious, that workers have suffered for the past 3 years, then must be able to implement an increase that is pensionable. We're saying you must take that 1,000 rand and put it to a pensionable increment, which in our view will be very close, that will be very close to our demand, because that will take it to 6.5%. Then we'll begin to deliberate and engage around the issues of the 3.5 that we want in our demand. And secondly, you must understand that these negotiations are not negotiations about other benefits. The issue of housing, that which is a challenge. We've got police that are renting, some of them were in their houses that were washed by floods in KZN. So we have lost some of the members of the police there because they can't afford houses. So in our view is that if we're just talking about the cost of living adjustment. We're not talking about the whole issue of the benefits that workers need. So we're saying that it can't be that workers can get 2%. In fact, it's an insult to the workers. Hence, we're saying that employer must take actually that gratuity fund and put it there, so that an employer will make contribution on the pension of the workers. Because for the past 2 years, employer is not making any contribution in the pension of the workers. So that is our view in terms of that. Police, in fact, we know that there is an outcry in our society about the police. But the problem is that in our society is that the understanding of the society is that the challenges that are confronting this country in terms of crime can solely be resolved by the police. In fact, the issue of crime is a societal matter. Without having a society taking it upon themselves to work closer with the police, it will be highly, highly impossible, in fact, to combat the issues of crime in this country. We're saying that because our society, in fact, currently are highly fragmented by quite a number of issues, the issue of unemployment, the issue of inequality, the issue of poverty and all that. But the society that can be united and be prepared to combat issues of crime in this country, it's for them to work closer with the police. And we've got structures even in the provinces, if you look, community safety and liaison structures. Those are the structures that need to actually educate the society about the important role that should be played by the police. We know that we've got isolated matters of where you find police being corrupt and all that. Those are the matters that can be nipped in the bud if then there is, in fact, a strong relations between the police and also the members of the society, because it's easy actually to identify those people by the members of the society and report that and be dealt with. So those are just matters that are isolated, but we're saying they must be dealt with. Where you find that police are involved, then it must be dealt with. But in the main is that if we're not working collectively with the society and the community safety and liaison in the provinces, they are not actually playing the role of ensuring that there is a good relationship between the police and the society or the communities, then it will be very difficult, in fact, to combat the issues of crime in this country.
Okay, thank you, Lumara. Are there any follow-up questions, colleagues, so that we conclude? Goran? Balungelo Alifai?
I'm just not clear on this issue of, I'm just wondering how much of a responsibility do your members take when
It's fine, Richard. Let me address actually this issue that are covered, that colleagues are raising here. In fact, that is why we're calling for the summit, to deal with all these issues. I know that it's easy for any member of the society to look actually at one area when they're dealing with this matter. Because in our view, it's not just to point incompetence on individual in this matter. Because we've got our firm view. I think we've touched some of the issues here. That indeed there are challenges structurally in terms of the police. We agree that there are structural challenges, defects, if in fact within the criminal justice system itself, because you can't actually look at one department on the issue of dealing with the issue of crime. But when we're talking about the police, we've never said, we said they isolated those issues because in majority, members of SAPS are committed in combating crime in this country. But there are challenges, as we're saying. That is why we want to call, that is why we're calling for the crime Indaba, the crime summit, to be able to deal with that. I just want to, for especially if we are raising that issue, we raise the issue of the post-establishment that decreased actually from, well, we're talking about 180 something to 155. That's a first post-establishment. We're saying the police are less than 100,000 in a country of 60 million people. So surely you can't expect that police indeed they are going to be able to deal with that. Even the minister, even the commissioner, they have said it previously that the number have gone down and we must work towards ensuring that we've got some. There are structural issues that we're talking about. Either you can actually challenge the police and all that. Go to the issue of the vehicles in SAPS. It's a challenge. It's not that we're not raising it. In fact, our view is that you need to capacitate the garage in the South African police services so that they will be able actually to fix this vehicle on time, so that they will be able to respond quickly to the community. Because there's a challenge that you've got actually garages that don't have actual staff. Yet you've got a lot of kids that are produced by TVET colleges that can be absorbed in these garages who have done motor mechanics and otherwise. So these are the things that we're raising actually within the department in terms of the equipment that are supposed to be used by the police. We're saying that. Whether you like it or you don't like it, but at the end of the day, these are the challenges that are confronting the police on the ground. But we're not saying there are no police who are involved in corrupt activities. Hence, we're saying, then those that are if they are identified, they must be isolated and be dealt with as such. But it can't be that if you are having 120,000 police, or you've got 100,000 police, you will find that 80,000 of those police, that will mean we'll have a crisis in the country. But in our view is that is why we said isolated, because we know that there are cases that are few, that are dealt with each and every time when they find that there is such in the police. So we're saying that it can't be just the issue of the police, but also society have got a role to play. The problem in this country, we're too reactive other than to be proactive. Hence that want to make a meaningful contribution in terms of saying, how are we going to be a country that is proactive in terms of crime? Because one, if we are saying we have more police, that means we are going to have more visible policing in South Africa, which will actually prevent most of the criminals to continue doing actual crime in this country. Because they know that each and every corner of this country, at least you'll have police that will ensure that it's not easy to commit any crime in the country. So we're saying that. And again, if you've got sufficient vehicles, it will mean that every street in this country will be patrolled. So these are the things that we should be talking about. We're saying that departments are not operating in silos. Because what's the use of going and look for money for NPA to prosecute and convict when you know that you don't have actually space to keep those people? Correctional centers, instead of dealing with overcrowding, instead of dealing with rehabilitation, they must address the issue of overcrowding. Because most of the correctional centers in this country are more than 100% overcrowded. So how do we expect rehabilitation to take place? That is why you find people going to prison today. Tomorrow is released, then it's going back to prison for another case that has been committed. So, or criminal activity that has been committed. That is a challenge that we're facing. Now we will have more reoffending other than dealing with the new people who have committed. So there is no synergy within this department to work together in dealing with the issue of crime. So it needs actually a multidisciplinary approach other than to look at one department that is not working. We want to say that here, but we're not actually disputing what you are raising. We're saying, but it calls for all of us to unite in fighting the issues of crime. Fewer resources, as you have alluded, we are correct, because issue of resources, poor resourcing of police in this country, we have raised it. We're raising it with the minister, we're raising it with the national commissioner, that these are the issues that need to be addressed. We're also talking about the issue of upward mobility of the intermediate phase. At the intermediate phase, talking about the constable, who are at the cold phase in dealing with crime. Because if they are demoralized, if they are not happy, it will be very difficult, because you'll have a workforce that is not productive. These are the things that we're engaging at the sectoral level, triple SPC, to address these issues in terms of the ensuring that at least our police at a lower level, they are able to get to be great progressed. So as I'm saying that, police are committed to deal with the issue of crime, but I am saying that you can't run away that there are those police that are corrupt at the same time, and those that should be dealt with it. But that is why we're calling to say, let's have a police, a crime summit where we're going to be able to deal with the issue of policing in this country, and also the issue of combating crime. What is POPCRU saying around the issue of the minister, who's playing the role of being a commissioner? I think this question, it's a good question if it's asking actually the supervisor of those people. It can be a good question. Because if you go to a president and ask him, who appoint the minister, why do you allow this to happen? Why do you allow actually the minister to play the role that is supposed to be played? Because there must be clear role. There are clear roles what the National Commission need to do. There are clear roles what the minister need to do in developing policy, driving the strategy of the police, and ensure that such policies are implemented. Then it should be done. Then the National Commissioner must deal with operational matters in the police. That's what should happen. But at the same time, what we don't want to say, if then the minister feels that there are gaps on the ground, then he cannot do it. If you feel that there are gaps, then the minister must take over. But the minister must ensure that the National Commissioner is always there on the ground to fight crime. It's always there in the crime scene and all that. So that's what he's supposed to do, and to monitor the performance of the National Commission. It's not that he should be there and all that, but we said, where's the supervisor actually to deal with that? Because the supervisor should say, but instead of you ensuring that you drive a strategy, ensuring that policies are developed, ensuring that they are implemented actually by the National Commission, we find yourself there. So it can't be us that will say you can't do it, but at the same time, if he sees gaps, then he's going to do it. Then those are the areas that need to be addressed, that we're saying must be addressed as soon as possible. Trust deficit. Trust deficit, as we agree, that some of the things, some of the causal factors of the trust deficit in the police, it's because police can't respond, cannot respond on time on the issues of crime. For instance, let me give you an example. If you've got a police station that is head by the captain in the shift, you've got very few people, staff there. That is why we've been raising it, that recreate actually this police station so that they are responsive to the needs of the society. For instance, if you go now today to some of the police stations, you find that those police stations were created as a captain stations 15 years ago, and then the capacity of the staff has not increased in that station. Yet the number of people in that particular area and the economic activities in that particular area has increased. Do you think that the police that were there 15 years ago in the society where at that time was 40-something million, today is 60 million, you expect that those police will be able to do the work. It's highly impossible. Even in rural areas, if you go today, most of the people go and build houses there. Most of the activities are taking place there. So, but SAPS is not actually doing enough to ensure that they upgrade those stations so that there will be more resources in those that are channeled to those stations. These are the challenges. That is why I was saying, if you are just going to look that police are lazy to do their work, then it's quite a number of things that need to be considered. That was saying, we raise with SAPS that address these issues as soon as possible. Surely, community will not march to head office of SAPS. Yet, members are handcuffed. They can't do anything because they don't have resources. Members there's a high shortage in those stations, but they are expected actually to do wonders at that level. Hence, in our view is that we must blame police when we are providing everything that is needed for the police. When we are providing sufficient members and say, yes, these police are lazy. We've provided them with resources. They are enough, they are sufficient actually to deal with the issues of crime. Then we said, then that is all what we always say to management, that police are not, society is not marching towards your office, to your offices. They march to police station and say these people can't do it. But in reality, we are not prepared to address these issues that we are raising each and every day. Hence, then the trust deficit is the order of the day when you go to our communities, within the actual, between the police and the community there. I don't know, if I left something, then Comrade will add on that.
Are there any follow-up questions?
Sorry, it's COVID again. So, is what the minister's doing right, or does he continue doing it? I'm not clear on what you're saying. Saying if he sees the gap, he must intervene. But at the same time, the supervisor must ask him why he's doing the job of the national commissioner. Do you think the minister should continue doing what he's doing, or not? And then secondly, I just want to ask this question very directly so I don't get it wrong. Will the police be going on strike? Or is it just POPCRU members at the public correctional services and other departments that are going on strike?
Malungelo?
Okay, Robin has touched on the issue of, because I also wanted clarity whether is it the police that will be also going on strike, and what does the law say about that? I think you know what the law says about that. And two, so you've painted this picture of your members that demoralized, that are that are working under difficult
Strenuous conditions.
and strenuous conditions. There are no resources, and that as communities we cannot blame them for crime. At least that's what I'm picking up on you from what you're saying. So would you then say the employer, which is government, is to blame for the crime problem in this country? I want to hear it from you. Would you say the South African government is responsible for the escalation of crime in this country and the failure for police to tackle it?
Do you see it's a point question?
There's no other questions.
No other questions to Bala.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I know that the issue of the minister, I've tried actually to explain it, but I said the minister, I've actually outlined the duties of the minister anyway, that should run the strategy of the department and ensure that it's being implemented and monitor that the national commissioner is implementing such. But I was saying, if you have tasked your kid to do something at home and you know that there's nothing that is happening, what are you supposed to do? there must be consequence management on those who are not doing that. And then at the same time, it does not mean that you will fold your arms and then things will go wrong. But what we're saying, roles are clear, that the minister must do that and the national commissioner must do what is right. But during the time of crisis, you can't actually say that he cannot. But it can't be something that every day, then he must be there. But what we're saying is that he can't just fold his arms at the end of the day, but his role is very clear. Hence we're saying, then a person who supervises the minister must tell him that you compromise actually the operations of SAPS for yourself to be found there, down there, doing dirty work. That is expected actually to be done by those people who are operational. We're clear in terms of that. But on the issue of the police going on strike, we said that for now we're going on. We embark on the program of action. That we're clear we've got all right to do. We've got a right actually to march and express our dissatisfaction or discontentment in terms of any issue that is affecting workers in this country. I know that others will say, no, but you don't have, we are in essential service and all that. But the work that we're doing is essential. At the same time, you must be very careful when you're saying members are essential, even if in the manner that you treat them, you expect them to be essential. Essential is the work that they are doing. And at the same time, you must understand that if then they are essential, you must treat them as such. Why don't you give them what they want so that at the end of the day, you don't have a situation where they will be able to go out and flex their muscles. So we are dealing with the situation here with the people that are angry, that are affected actually by quite a number of things, that are losing houses, that are losing cars, basic things that they are losing now as we speak here, that are under depression. So you can't say then at the end of the day that are hungry at the same time. Then you expect that you are going to handcuff them by saying they are essential services and therefore they don't need to strike. It's not a strike for now. But if it calls for that, we are going to call you again and say, we have got no option because we are being undermined and all that. We are no longer going to work within the law. But we want to push our government to a particular situation whereby they will realize that the pain that they inflict to the workers in this country is too much. We cannot take it anymore. So I want to be clear in terms of that. Also want to, as we are saying that our members are demoralized and all that, and then at the same time, we put it squarely on government failure to say in the issue of crime in this country. Yeah, we must say that to some extent, yes, because on these issues that we're raising, for instance, I will make you an example, simple thing. You go to a department and say, on the budget of the COE, compensation of employees, employ more people. They will tell you that National Treasury said, you can't overspend with a cent on the compensation of employees. What must you do? It's not actually the government, the National Treasury, who said you can't overspend with a cent even if you see that there's crisis in this country. It's a situation that we're faced with. That some of this department, they agree with us that we need to address this problem. But we can't get money from the National Treasury. What must we do? So it's a challenge that we have, that we've got a super ministry that determines everything. But the challenge is that the department is entrusted with the responsibility, you see, to deliver the mandate of the department. But at the same time, you don't give them resources actually to deliver such mandate. So these are the things that are saying. You go to correctional services, you'll find the same thing. That even now, we can't employ more on this 30,000 because they put it flatly, National Treasury, that it's only 39,000. Yet our members are butchered by offenders each and every day in this country. Look at the incident recently in Westville, where our members were stabbed. In Sefontaine, our members were stabbed by offenders. In Eastern Cape, corrections every day. Here in Johannesburg prisons and other prisons, you find the same thing. But at the same time, you've got a National Treasury that say we can't release those resources to increase actually staff. So it's a challenge that we're faced with, that we're saying, yes, if then they are committed to deal with this issue of crime, they must provide actually these resources and then blame them, those departments, for their failure, you see, to work effectively on those matters. So currently we're saying this is a situation that we're faced with. Hence then, we're going to unleash even our anger towards the Department of National Treasure on these matters that we're saying. It can't be that. You can't provide resources, yet our country is under siege. You see, our people are dying on the ground. And this thing affects the poor, in fact, most the working class and the poor in the main, because you can't find it in Mhlanga, where you find that they've got actually security all over, inside and outside their houses. So it affects the poor communities where you found in the township, in rural areas, that people are dying each and every day. So these are the things that we're raising to say, at the end of the day, our government must, in fact, deal with this matter. Hence, in the crime summit, we're going to say this is a role that should be played by government in dealing and also defeating the issue of crime in this country. Thanks.